The first Maltese in Australia was a convict, which sounds rather familiar. The last is yet to arrive. But just arrived is a book, The Maltese in Australia by Barry York. The book is part of a series on Australian ethnic society. You've yet to reach the Italian ones yet, I know. Now, Barry, you're in fact of Maltese descent. Your father came to Australia and changed his name. Why?
Well, he changed his name actually in London after the war. He'd been with the Royal Air Force and was stationed in London after the war, and I think fundamentally... in those days as it is today.
Yes, it's only recently been acceptable, hasn't it, in Australia?
That's right, and in England too at the time.
Now, do the Maltese see themselves as partly British? Because the British have been there for almost as long as the Maltese have.
Oh, the British were there from about... many decades. But as I point out in my book, in a way that was purely a formality, and it didn't really always serve their interests.
What was the start of Malta? It goes back to the Phoenicians, isn't it?
Well, years before Christ.
We've got these three little islands, haven't we? Which, what, you say in your book, how many would they... Malta itself, the one island, would fit into Tasmania about 95 times, you say?
Oh, I think it's 200 times.
Yeah. I mean, it's very little, isn't it?
Very small, yeah. With 340,000 people today. Small, but the impact has been enormous. And as you said, there are Maltese everywhere. In Canada, England, you name it.
Well, how does Australia rank as regards the number of Maltese?
Well, from the 1920s onwards, we've... elsewhere, America as well.
Now, your book, it's hard to go through the book in 5 minutes, but your book tells about a lot of the hardship, which of course wasn't common to the Maltese, it was common to anyone who came to Australia. I mean, I mentioned the first Maltese in Australia was one of two convicts. How were they attracted to Australia in the very early days?
Australia came in the late 19th century, in the 1880s. They went to North Queensland to work on the sugar fields. They were contracted by sugar planters who were, to be blunt about it, I mean, they were looking for a substitute for the Pacific Island. Maltese, from what I can gather, that particular group didn't like it very much at all. They were horrified by the working conditions on the plantations. They expected to be treated like other Australian working people, and they walked off.
Well, after all that, why did people leave Malta?
It's very heart-wrenching for Maltese people to emigrate permanently. It's a lovely island in the Mediterranean Sea, lovely history. It's a certain fairy tale romantic quality about the place, but at the same time, it's a very barren place. Imagine life can be difficult under those circumstances. I've interviewed many, many migrants, and all of them really say the same thing, and that is that they came here for their children.
But of course a lot went back in the, you say in your book, in the mid and to late 70s, 9,000, which is a fair amount, went back to Malta. What were they escaping from and going to?
Well, I think a lot of them may have been people who... Well, that was over a period of time, over a decade, I think, maybe. And we had worked out a reciprocal pensions agreement with Malta. So a lot of the early migrants had decided, right, we'll retire in Malta.
And how many come out now? Is it...
Oh, it's a mere trickle now.
Yes.
I suppose.
Clive. The Maltese in Australia, our guest is Barry York, who went back to Malta, but that's the story for another time. It's part of the Australian Ethnic Heritage Series, the AE Press in Melbourne. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much, Clive.
And there'll be more of NewsWorld shortly.